Welcome to a new series where I will talk about Mexican players and managers playing and managing abroad, specifically in the top leagues in Europe. I am Mexican, and as such, I'm invested in these players, and I hope that they can eventually end the suffering that we, the national team fans, know all too well. So, let's get started. Raul Jimenez just completed a transfer from Wolves to Fulham this summer. Unfortunately, Raul hasn't been the same ever since his school fracture back in November 2020. Thanks to everybody's favorite defender, David Luiz. He scored 27 goals in 55 games in all competitions during that 1920 season. But since then, the best he has managed is 6 goals in 36 games as he returned from his injury the following season. But no, at Fulham, Marco Silva debuted him in the season opener against Everton, ahead of Mitrovic even. It was a tough match for Fulham, despite their win, and especially tough for Raul. Fulham were lucky to come away with the win, as Everton had an XG of 2.73 with 9 shots on target compared to Fulham's 2 shots on target and 1.5 XG. And not to mention, the goal that I believe was wrongfully disallowed for Everton. But back to Raul. He wasn't super involved in the game until about the 56th minute, where he hit a cross from Harry Wilson on the volley, but unfortunately for all of us, it hit the far post. Funnily enough, before the end of the play, he was going to be subbed out for Mitrovic anyway, so it would have been funny if he scored and then was immediately subbed off. But as for his future, the 32-year-old must be hoping that Mitrovic leaves for Saudi Arabia before the end of the transfer window. This way, he might get some prime playing time. If Mitrovic stays, I see it very hard for Raul to get too many minutes this season. In the 57 minutes that he was in the game against Everton, Raul earned a 6.8 rating, and the win sent Fulham up to 5th place, tied with Crystal Palace and Man U. But it is still too early in the season to really get a grasp of how the table is shaping up. But on match day 2, Fulham was not as lucky, as they lost 3-0 to 8th place Brentford. Raul played almost a full match at 86 minutes and had 2 shots that were blocked. Overall, this also wasn't too much of a great performance from Raul, as he has really yet to make an impact on the games. He was once again subbed out, but he has been getting the first team call up ahead of Mitrovic, so that gives me faith that he might be in for a good season, but I don't know yet. In this match, he only earned a rating of 5.3, and the result drops Fulham down to 13th place. Edson Alvarez may perhaps be the best or second best Mexican player at the moment, and he has just made a move from Ajax, where he had been playing for 4 years, to West Ham in the Premier League. I hope that he's able to showcase his talent in the Prem and becomes a regular starter. It won't be easy, as West Ham has a pretty stacked midfield, but hopefully with the departure of Declan Rice to Arsenal, El Machine will be able to get some minutes in. But the addition of James Ward-Prowse might threaten that. He was not included in the squad for West Ham's season opener against Bournemouth that ended in a 1-1 draw. West Ham sat tied in 10th place with Liverpool, Bournemouth, and Chelsea after that game. Interestingly enough, Chelsea is who they played on match day 2. Edson Alvarez did make his debut for West Ham against Chelsea, but only after coming on in the 81st minute for James Ward-Prowse. In the 90 minutes that he did play, he made 1 clearance and 1 interception. He was on the field when Paquetá scored West Ham's 3rd goal from a penalty in the 5th minute of stoppage time to win 3-1. This win takes West Ham up to 5th place, tied with Liverpool and Spurs. Tecatito missed a total of 30 games for Sevilla last season due to injury, most prominently the fibular fracture he suffered early in the season, which sidelined him until December, only for him to suffer an ankle injury right after coming back and be out until February. Corona wasn't featured in Sevilla's game against Valencia. Valencia beat Sevilla 2-1 with an 80th minute goal. Honestly, there's a lot of competition in the squad for the position that Tecatito plays, and he has to compete against a triad of Argentines, including Papu Gomez, Eric Lamela, and Lucas Ocampos. After this game, Sevilla occupied the 14th position, tied with Villarreal. On Wednesday, August 16th, Sevilla would also lose against Manchester City in the UEFA Super Cup. They did draw after regular time, but Sevilla did lose in penalties. Once again, Tecatito failed to make an appearance. But in their second match day, Sevilla played against 16th place Deportivo Alaves, which they actually lost 4-3. Tecatito didn't start the match, but he came on as a sub for Joan Jordan in the 75th minute. But he wasn't really that effective in the 15 minutes that he was able to play. He had one pass into the final third and one interception. He earned a rating of 6.4. This second consecutive loss in the league dropped Sevilla into a relegation spot 18th place. I don't think anybody knows how exactly Andres Guardado is still playing in a top league at the age of 36, but it is clear that, unfortunately, he is on a decline. The day that he retires will be a sad one, as he is Mexico's appearance leader with 181 caps. Guardado was subbed in on the 81st minute in Betis's 2-1 win against Villarreal. A goal in the 5th minute of stoppage time by William Jose being the decider in that match. A stacked Betis midfield consisting of Isco, William Carvalho, Guido Rodriguez, and Nabil Fekir makes it really hard to believe that Guardado will have consistent playing time in this Betis squad this season. And this season may be Andres' last one, as his contract is up at the end of the season. But that win against Villarreal put Betis in 5th place, tied with Valencia. Now, on match day 2, Betis played in a goalless draw against Atletico Madrid. Once again, Guardado came off the bench and played for a total of 6 minutes, just like in the first match day. This draw puts Betis in 7th place in the league. Javier Aguirre was appointed the manager of Mallorca at the end of about March of last season, when Mallorca was in 11th place. He wasn't able to do much, and Mallorca ended the season with a respectable 9th place, considering that they barely managed to escape their relegation by a single point the season prior. Now, Aguirre has a challenge of matching or improving last season's finish. He has a decent squad at his disposal, though. Serbian keeper Predrag Rajkovic was the 5th best keeper in terms of goals conceded per match last season. He conceded 40 goals in 36 matches for a 1.11 goals conceded per match average. In addition, he also had a 70% save percentage and a total of 12 clean sheets in the league. Aguirre has made some additions to the squad, but I'm not sure if it'll be enough to match last season's finish. But I hope that he proves me wrong. Manu Morlanes' loan from Villarreal was made permanent, and the rest of the signings were made from the bottom 4 teams in the league last year, which doesn't sound too promising, but I guess he is scraping the league. Omar Maceral joined from Elche, Sergi Darder joined from Espanyol, Canadian Kyle Aaron joined from Real Valladolid, Portuguese Samu joins from Almeria, and Tony Lato joined on a free from Valencia, which wasn't in the bottom 4, but Valencia did finish 15th or 14th, I believe, last season. Mallorca also signed CB van der Heijden from USG in the Belgian League. Now, in their match against newly promoted Las Palmas, Aguirre utilized a 5-3-2 and would primarily attack on the counter. Mallorca only had a 31% of the possession, but had 12 total shots and an XG of 1.8, compared to 5 shots of Las Palmas with an XG of 0.93. However, Mallorca were pretty inefficient with the ball, as only 2 of the 12 shots were on target. And Mallorca were unlucky as they hit the post, and then they hit a penalty into the crossbar in the first half alone. A 70th minute header by Antonio Rayo off of a corner equalized the match, as Las Palmas had converted a penalty in the 29th minute. After this 1-1 draw, Mallorca sat in 8th place, tied with Girona, Real Sociedad, and Las Palmas themselves, since they tied. Now, in the second match day, was on Friday, August 18th, and they faced a 14th place Villarreal, who had finished 5th place last season, so it was always going to be a challenging match. He continues to field 5 at the back and play without the ball, as they only had 40% possession of the ball in this match. And unlike their game last week against Las Palmas, where Mallorca had greater chances, here Mallorca had significantly less, as they only had 8 shots compared to Villarreal's 15. Likewise, the XG shows the same picture, as Mallorca's XG was only 0.38 compared to Villarreal's 1.95. This loss drops Mallorca down to a further 14th place. And speaking of Las Palmas, Julian Araujo is a young player for Barcelona who is currently on loan at Las Palmas. However, he was not featured in their match against Mallorca, where they faced against Javier Aguirre. That actually would have been the first time this season that two Mexicans would have faced against each other in some capacity. But hopefully, this loan at Las Palmas can get Araujo some experience. But it may be hard as he is competing against Alvaro Lemos for that starting right back position. On the second match day, Las Palmas would play against a fifth-place Valencia that is hoping to improve from last season's relegation battle. And Valencia seemed to have had a great start to the season as they managed to beat Las Palmas due to a 74th minute penalty. Araujo was subbed in at halftime for the Demos and had a decent performance, earning himself a 6.9 rating. Nice. Araujo created two chances and had a shot on target while also getting an interception and 3 ball recoveries. This loss drops Las Palmas down to 14th, tied with Mallorca. Cesar Montes joined Espanyol from Monterrey in the January transfer window. A Mexican international that leaves the motherland to play in Europe. Finally, someone steps up. Unfortunately, Espanyol were in the relegation zone at the time. A few wins brought them up to 12th place by the beginning of March, but a single win in their last 14 matches of the season meant that they finished 19th, securely in the relegation zone. Montes scored 3 goals and had an average rating of 6.68 to be Espanyol's 8th highest rated player. Although Montes didn't feature in Espanyol's tie against Albacete, I see him being an integral part of the season where Espanyol surely aim for promotion back to La Liga. That is, if he stays. There are rumors suggesting that he may transfer away, but after this draw, Espanyol sat in 9th place with multiple, tied with a few other teams that also had 1-1 draws. Some bad news is that since the beginning of the season, however, El Cachorro has refused to train with the team in order to try and force a move out of Espanyol following the relegation from La Liga. He was most heavily linked with a move back to the Mexican League with America, or either to move up to Almeria in the Spanish First Division. But I don't really think this is the way to go about things, and I don't think he's going to get what he wants. I understand that he doesn't really want to play in the second division, but he did sign a contract until 2028, and I don't think this is going to be resolved in this transfer window. And I'm kind of glad that Espanyol rejected this transfer because it would really suck for him just to spend half a year in Europe and go back to Mexico, especially to America. Sorry to my Americanistas out there. I'm not a fan. But I'm glad he stayed. Espanyol are strong candidates to be promoted this season, so he shouldn't have to wait too long before he's playing back in the top division. But in his absence, Espanyol did beat Racing Santander, who were the league leaders after the match they won, in a 2-0 win to rise up to 4th place in the table. Now, if I cover Cesar Montes, who, even though he is a Mexico international player, he is playing in the second division, I also have to cover other Mexicans in the second division. And one of those is 21-year-old Jordan Carrillo, who is on loan at Sporting Gijon from my very own Santos Laguna. Although it's only a loan, I'll cover him because he is playing in the same league as Cesar Montes. Last season, Gijon finished 17th place out of 22, only 6 points away from relegation in 19th. Carrillo started 6 matches and came on as a sub in 15 more for a total of 720 minutes. He scored 1 goal and earned an average rating of 6.58 throughout the season. But so far this season, he has yet to feature in a game for Gijon. They lost to Valladolid in the season opener, but then managed to beat Mirandés in the second match day. Another Mexican player that's on loan at Gijon is 20-year-old Esteban Lozano. Lozano is on loan from America, and he recently joined Gijon as part of the reserve team. However, unlike Carrillo, Lozano was somehow able to earn first team minutes in the season opener against Real Valladolid, coming in as a sub in the 77th minute. Unfortunately for both of the youngsters, Gijon, like I said, lost 2-0. But this is a team that I will follow closely now that I know that there are two young Mexicans with high potential playing here. The loss against Valladolid dropped Gijon to 19th place, but the win against Mirandés brought them up to 10th place in the league. And in this match, Lozano was also able to come in as a sub, playing for a total of 22 minutes. And in those 22 minutes, he was able to complete 2 passes into the final third and get 2 clearances and interceptions for a rating of 6.3. Now I know that the Spanish third division is pretty low, but we can't not cover Rafa Marquez. Rafa Marquez became the manager of the Barcelona reserve team back in July 2022 and led them to a 4th place finish in Group 2, which qualified them for promotion playoffs. Unfortunately, they lost to their arch rivals Real Madrid Castilla to remain in the third division. He has 1 year left on his contract, and if he's able to gain promotion to the second division, I believe he should be offered an extension. He's a promising manager, and I hope that he proves himself and is one day appointed the manager of the national team. Barça Athletic, as the reserve team is called, has yet to play a match, as their season opener is on August 27th. But once they do start playing, I will cover his progress, just like Javier Aguirre, just because I have so much faith that Rafa Marquez will hopefully reach his potential and one day manage the national team. Now, moving countries, El Chucky Lozano just came off a season in which his team, Napoli, won the Scudetto for the first time since 1990, and where they reached the quarterfinals of the Champions League, in which he scored 4 and assisted 4 in 41 total appearances before his season was unfortunately cut short in mid-May due to a knee injury that actually kept him out of the national team squad for both the Nations League and La Copa Oro. With the new season underway, Napoli's first match would be against Frosinone, which they won 3-1 quite comfortably, with Napoli having 8 shots on target to Frosinone's sole shot on target. However, Chucky stayed on the bench for the entirety of the match. Politanos' good performance last season have made him a considerable competitor for that right wing spot, and it'll be really interesting to see if and how Chucky can win that spot back. The early win, shot Napoli up to 3rd place in the Serie A. Staying in Italy, Memo Ochoa sat on the bench as Salernitana beat Serie B side Ternana 1-0 with a goal from Antonio Candreva in the round of 64th of La Coppa Italia. Salernitana will face Sampdoria in the round of 32, and he might not be the goalkeeper designated for the cup, but he is definitely the keeper designated for the league. Speaking of the goalkeepers at Salernitana, I don't know what their recruiting logic or ideas are, because they have 5 other goalkeepers aside from Memo in their squad, and 4 of the 6 keepers are 32 and over, including Memo, but the other 2 are 20 and younger. So they have no keepers between the ages of 20 and 32, which is pretty odd. But anyway, back to Salernitana. They actually played Roma in the opening match day and managed to actually come away with a decent result. Roma had a goal called offside early in the 7th minute, which was the right call looking back. And then Candreva managed to put Salernitana ahead with a brace, one before halftime and one afterwards. The goal that put Salernitana ahead, so that second goal by Candreva, was such a wonder goal, as Candreva brought it down with his right foot after being crossed, and then set it up for his left foot to hit it in the top left corner off of the volley, or half volley, I should say. Unfortunately, Roma equalized in the 82nd minute, but actually, looking at the stats, it was definitely a good game for Salernitana, scoring 2 when the XG was only 0.14. Ochoa had 1 big save and earned a rating of 6.1. The draw puts Salernitana in ninth place, tied with Roma as they drew. And I think it's going to be a pretty long season for Ochoa, as his defense is not great. In the game against Roma, sometimes they would stop trying to win the ball after they were beat by the attacker. And they seem to have not great communication amongst themselves. So hopefully, this is something that can be addressed further in the season. Joan Vasquez played the entire match on the left-hand side of a three-man defense for Genoa in a thrilling 4-3 win over Serie B Modena. Vasquez had two shots on goal, with his second one being converted on the brink of halftime to level the score at 2-2. Johan made contact with the ball, whipped in from a free kick by Gudmundsson, and headed it into the back of the net, close to the post. He was given a rating of 7.7, and this allowed Genoa to advance to the round of 32, where they will face another Serie B side, Reggiana. That was on August 11th. Now on August 19th, Genoa played their season opener against Fiorentina, and unfortunately, it did not go well for Genoa, who suffered a 4-1 loss. Vasquez did not originally start the match, but he was subbed on in the 60th minute after all the goals in the match had already been scored. But in his 30 minutes that he did play, Johan managed to win a tackle, clear a ball, and recover possession twice. For the half hour that he played, he was given a 6.1 rating, and unfortunately, this loss puts Genoa in 19th place in an early relegation battle. Jorge Sanchez was kept on the bench last weekend for Ajax as they cruised past Heracles 4-1 comfortably. I wonder if he's closer to cementing a starting spot in the squad given his decent performances last season. The Divine Ranch will definitely give him some tough competition, however, for that right back position. After that win against Heracles, Ajax sat in second place. And Sanchez was also not featured in the second game of the season, where Ajax tied against sixth place Excelsior 2-all. That tie drops Ajax to fifth place as they are not starting the season off perfect as they would be expected to. Also, it's important to note that Jorge has been linked to rumors of transferring away on a loan or some kind of deal to Porto before the end of the transfer window, so that's also going to be something to look out for. Perhaps the future of Mexican football, the golden boy himself, Santi Jimenez, scored the winner in the Gold Cup this summer, and I was really hoping Mexico would win it, as we pretty much sent our first team, minus a few players like Chucky, Tecatito, or Raul, so maybe like a 1.5 team, while Canada and the U.S. sent their second or third teams. So if we didn't win it, it would be a pretty major disappointment. I think Panama and Jamaica were truly the biggest competition, as they did send the strongest teams that they had to the Gold Cup. But back to Santi, he plays for Feyenoord in the Eredivisie, of course, just like Jorge Sanchez. He was the club's top scorer last season as they won the league and topped the Europa League group before being knocked out in the quarterfinals by Roma, in addition to making the semifinals of the KNVB Cup in the Netherlands. Santi scored 15 goals in 32 league appearances, which was tied for fourth. 5 goals and 9 Europa League appearances, tied for second, in addition to 3 goals and 4 KNVB Cup appearances, tied for third, for a total of 23 goals in 45 appearances, or a goal every other game. So far this season, Santis has scored in a preseason friendly win against Benfica. And after that, he played in the first 62 minutes of a loss to PSV in the Dutch Super Cup, where he was given a 6.0 rating. And then he also played the entire 90 minutes of the season opener against Fortuna Sittard. The match ended in a 0-0 draw, with Santi earning a 6.3 rating, and actually not a great game for him, as he had the least amount of touches of any player on either team, actually, for only 34, which is weird, because he actually had less touches than his teammate, who was sent off in the 25th minute, which is just not a great sign that he had a good game that day. But I'm sure he'll get better as the season goes on and he gets back into rhythm. After that draw, Pioneer sat in 9th place. Then the next week, they played in a derby against seventh placed Sparta Rotterdam, in which they were unable to get their first win of the season. Unfortunately, Sparta were 2-0 up by the 54th minute, but in the 69th minute, nice. Feyenoord had a goal called offside, but they looked more clinical and more dangerous. Finally, in the 77th minute, Santi scored a header from close range off of a cross from Paixão. Sparta almost secured the win in the 80th minute as they had a 1v1 situation with the keeper, but what a save that he made to keep Feyenoord within range. And then finally, a goal in the 91st minute by Leo Sawyer allowed Feyenoord to rescue a point. The second continuous draw drops Feyenoord even further down to 12th place in the league. Gerardo Arteaga plays as a left back for Genk. As a Genk or Genk, I'm going to call them Genk, and then I'll be corrected at some point, in the Belgian First Division A. The Belgian League actually started towards the end of July, and as such already has 4 match days under the belt. In addition to this, Genk finished runners-up in the league last season, which qualified them for the Champions League second qualifying round, where they would have to face off against Switzerland's Servette. The first match of the season was the away leg of the Champions League qualifier on the 25th of July, which Genk drew 1-1, and Arteaga did not play at all. Then on July 29th, Genk played their season opener against newly promoted Molenbeek and firmly beat them 4-0. Arteaga played the full 90 minutes and earned himself a pretty decent 7.9 rating, having 4 interceptions, 6 recoveries, 14 passes to the final third, and creating a big chance. This result put Genk top of the league early, before they had to face Servette at home for their second leg on August 2nd. In this match, with a score 1-0, Arteaga was subbed on right after halftime, and Genk seemed to improve as they took the lead just 5 minutes later in the 50th minute. Unfortunately, Servette equalized within 15 minutes, even though they had been playing a man down since the 3rd minute. Worse for Arteaga, the goal came as a result of him not being able to deal with the through ball that was played right next to him that he was beaten to. The draw stood until penalties, where Genk missed 2 of their first 3 penalties to lose 4-1 in the shootout. In this match, Arteaga played for 75 minutes and managed to get a shot on target, but received a 6.3 rating. This loss sent Genk from the Champions League qualifiers to the Europa League qualifiers, the 3rd round, where they would play against Olympiacos. Unfortunately, the bad form continued as Genk lost in the league 3 days later to 6th place Eupen 1-0 on August 5th. Once again, Arteaga played a full 90 minutes and managed to get a shot that went just wide of the post. An 88% pass accuracy and 8 ball recoveries were enough for him to earn a 7.3 rating. This pushed Genk down to 6th place in the league, however. The bad form continued as Genk lost away to Olympiacos 1-0 in the first leg of the Europa League qualifiers on August 10th. Arteaga was subbed in the 70th minute, but wasn't able to achieve much in the time that he was on the field. Back in the league, Genk played against 7th place Cercle Brugge on August 13th. Genk managed to get a 1-0 win, which sat them in 5th place in the table with 6 points. Unfortunately, Arteaga was kept on the bench, just like he would be for the second leg of the Europa League against Olympiacos on August the 17th. Paintsel scored a penalty in the 30th minute to tie the match on aggregate. And extra time seemed almost assured until Olympiacos player Sotirios Alexandropoulos scored in the 6th minute of stoppage time to give the win to Olympiacos. So, after losing in the Champions League qualifiers and being knocked down into the Europa League qualifiers, Genk lost the Europa League qualifiers and will now be playing in the Conference League qualifiers against Turkish side Adana Demirspor in the playoff round, the winner of which will qualify for the group stages, and the loser will be knocked out of Europe. Now, back in the league, Genk played against 11th place Sporting Charleroi, and Arteaga did not play, with the match ending in a 0-0 draw. The draw dropped Genk a spot further into 6th with only 7 points, and there are rumors that Arteaga might be tied with Lyon in the French in the Ligue, but these are just rumors as of now, and I will keep an eye out. Both Orbelin Pineda and Rodolfo Pizarro play for AEK Athens in the Greek Super League. Pineda has been playing here since July of 2022 when he was on loan from Celta de Vigo. Pizarro has just arrived from Inter Miami. I'm assuming due to the recent arrival of Tata, but don't even get me started on him. Anyway, in their first competitive match of the season, Athens played against Dinamo Zagreb in the Champions League third qualifying round. Unfortunately, the first leg was postponed due to a tragic and outright stupid incident in which an AEK Athens fan was stabbed and unfortunately lost his life in confrontations leading up to the match. This act has no place in this beautiful game, and I offer the family and friends of the victim my condolences. In the first leg that got underway in Croatia, on August 15th, Zagreb player Balut scored a beautiful free kick from about 30 yards out in the 39th minute, before Athens tied in the 59th minute. Orbelin Pineda actually scored in the 72nd minute, but the goal was ruled offside just by a shirt sleeve. At this point in the game, the match was drawn 1-1, and Del Mago was subbed off for none other than his compatriot Pizarro in the 83rd minute. In his debut, Pizarro assisted the game winner in the 80th minute after some bounces in the box after a corner. This gave Athens the important away win. Now, the second leg was played on August 19th in Greece. Pineda started the match as well, but Zagreb did not come to play as they scored just before halftime, and once more in the 65th minute to go up 3-2 on aggregate. Pineda was subbed out in the 76th minute, but this time not for Pizarro. Actually, Pizarro didn't make an appearance at all. As soon as Pineda was subbed out, Athens would score a goal to even the aggregate, is what I would say if it wasn't considered offside. Scaring Zagreb for a quick second was also the fact that they almost went down to 10 men after the ref gave an incorrect yellow card to the wrong player who already had a yellow. But the ref fixed this mistake and nobody was sent off. But what an end to the match, as Athens scored in the 90th minute. But once again, the goal was ruled offside. Only for Athens to score twice in stoppage time to come back and win 4-3 on aggregate. One goal from a corner and one from a bounce off of a missed penalty. Or, of course, there was a penalty in the 10th minute of 5 minutes of stoppage time. But what a comeback this was. And this result puts Athens in the playoff round against Antwerp. The first leg was played on the 22nd of August in Belgium. Pineda played for the entirety of the match and was able to have a shot, but unfortunately that shot was blocked. And he also had 9 passes into the final third. He had an XG of 0.26, but also picked up a yellow card throughout the game. Unfortunately, Antwerp were able to win by a single goal, despite being a man down for the last 40 minutes. The result was actually a surprise, given that Antwerp only had an XG of 0.8, while Athens had an XG of 1.94, where Athens were not clinical at all and needed that finishing touch. In this last game, Pizarro was not featured as well. And speaking of Pizarro, here are his stats. He had 7 minutes in the first leg against Dinamo and hasn't played since. And finally, but not least, we have Luis Chavez. Now, Luis Chavez is a curious case, as he just did something very unusual. He just bought out his own release clause in order to force a move out of Pachuca. He reportedly paid about $6 million of his own money, or money that he garnered somehow, to try and accomplish this. Now, I'm happy for Chavez and proud of his dedication to try and get European football, in which he's willing to take risks and lose money on the way there. So we know that he's not just after money. Now, I think that this shows what type of player, what type of person he is, and it's what Mexico needs, the national team needs moving forward. Now, the the bad news is that he has signed with Dynamo Moscow. Now, the Russian league is not the best league to be playing football if you want European football, considering that they have been banned from participating in European competitions. But I guess this is a step in the right direction, I suppose, albeit a baby step. It'll be interesting to see how this intriguing career move plays out, especially considering that the two leagues are basically on par quality wise. Liga MX with the Russian Premier League. Um, the drastic difference is that, and he's at Russia now, but leaving Russia might prove difficult while under contract, given that Russian teams have also been given a transfer ban where they can't buy or really sell players besides within the league or as if their contracts run out. So that's one of the reasons that he had to buy his own way out of the contract at Pachuca, out of the release clause at Pachuca. The Russian Dynamo Moscow wasn't able to pay Pachuca directly. Now, this is something that he is might have to struggle with in the future, but I hope that all is okay. Now, as for Dynamo, they currently sit in third place with 3 wins, a draw, and a loss to their name. But yeah, this is gonna be it for the first episode. If you enjoyed the episode, I suppose, or the series, the first episode in the series, please don't forget to hit a like. And if you want to hear updates next week, hit that subscribe button. Y pues ahí nos vemos, raza.